Welcome to the eCommerce Profitability Show, a podcast by Link My Books. We speak with profitable e-commerce store owners and experts to help your e-commerce business become profitable. Because revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. I'm your host, Dan Little. Okay, so joining us today is Will Laurenson, the CEO and Lead CRO Consultant at Customers Who Click, a full-service CRO agency that specializes in optimizing conversion rates for eight-figure e-commerce brands. Will's expertise in the field is not just theoretical. He has hands-on experience in driving significant improvements in conversion rates and marketing efficiency. He's also the co-founder of Customers Who Click podcast, where he shares a treasure trove of marketing insights with experts across the industry. Will's approach is unique in that he combines a deep understanding of consumer psychology with cutting-edge data analytics to transform website visitors into loyal customers. His strategies are a game changer for e-commerce businesses struggling with conversion challenges in today's highly competitive digital marketplace. Will, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for being here. Okay, so to kick things off, could you share with us your core philosophy or approach towards conversion rate optimization in the e-commerce space?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our own methodology, which is the UAM Method, which is usability, anxiety, and motivation. It's basically come about because we've run hundreds of tests across various websites and basically decided that all of our tests fit into these three categories. We're either targeting the usability and functionality of the website, or we're targeting anxieties that visitors have, or we're trying to motivate them. Right. So starting with usability, it's very simply, this is how the website works. Right. Can people find and buy the products they're looking for? Can they find the information they're looking for? And also, to a certain degree, does the website work properly? What we find quite often, especially on Shopify websites, is on mobile devices, various widgets and pop-ups will get in the way. Right, so we had an issue with a client actually recently who they had their live chat button was always visible even when their mini cart was open. What was also happening was they had a shipping protection widget on there as well on the cart. And for some reason, it was auto-selected by default, which was fine. If you unselected it, even though the actual widget section didn't change, it was only whether the shipping protection was added in the cart. There was a small shift in the screen, which meant that the button for the widget then ended up behind live chat, and it became really, really difficult to click. So we would see people in session recordings turning it off and then kind of noticing what had happened and then trying to turn it on again and just opening live chat again and again. So we just fixed that, but it's just stuff to look out for. But really what we're looking for is, how can we help customers find the products they're looking for as quickly as possible? One thing I spoke about on LinkedIn today actually was search. So many brands will just have a little search icon, top right corner of their website, up near the cart button. Sometimes they might have an account button or a wish list button. It's stuck up there. People don't see it. People don't use it. Simply by making it an open text bar at the top of the screen, top of navigation, always visible, this looks like it's having about a 25% impact on revenue for them, which is massive, right? Just by making search visible. So other examples of this might be adding different payment methods, giving people PayPal as a quick option or Shop Pay. It could be how you use the filters on a product listing page, or it could be, how you select product options on a PDP. Just tweaking these things based on what customers are telling us and based on how we see them interacting with the page as well. So, another example of that would be, we had one client who had, for one of the option types for their product, I think they had 15 options there, and each one was listed out on the page as a swatch icon, swatch button. So we just moved all these options into drop downs. It really cleans up the page. It makes it so much easier to kind of absorb as a visitor. And again, that had a boost on the conversion rate. So, the only thing we were doing really was tidying up the page, just making it easier for the customer. The second part of it is anxiety. So these are the questions and concerns someone has about your products and your business. So from the product side, it's going to be, what are the questions that I need the answers to to be able to make a purchase, right? So for a sofa, it might be, what are the dimensions? What's the material? What happens if something gets spilt on it? Can I get this into my house? Various things like that.
How do you think of those questions? And is that something you involve old customers in sort of like customer research?
So sometimes it can be obvious. There are certain things we think we're pretty sure if this information is not on the page, it needs to be there. So let's add it to the page, let's test it and see what happens. Other times it'll be via interviews, via surveys. We'll ask, what is the most important piece of information to you about this? Or what information do you need to know in order to make a purchase? Sometimes we'll dig into customer service as well and just see what questions are commonly being asked.
And so those surveys, sorry to interrupt you here again. So those surveys, are you using, is that also part of like a Hotjar experience, so to speak, where it's like in app, straight in the actual checkout process or on the page for the product? Are you popping up a little survey at that point straight away for existing customers?
It can be. So we'll quite often use an exit intent pop-up on desktop. So if people are leaving a product page, we'll just ask, what's the number one reason you're not purchasing today? Or what information were you looking for today? Something like that.
And is that a free text box, or do you give them options to choose from at that point?
We always use free text. Yeah. I don't. Thing is, if someone says, product details as a drop-down option or product dimensions, that still doesn't really tell me what the issue is. It tells me that people are concerned about the product dimensions. What it doesn't tell me is, are they looking for the product dimensions? Are they not happy with the product dimensions? Do they not understand them? Are the product dimensions just not right for them? Right? It doesn't tell me anything. So we tend to use open text because someone would say, I couldn't find the product dimensions, or the product wasn't the right size for me, or I don't think I can get it into my house.
Yeah, I like that actually. And we are considering doing something similar for Link My Books in terms of a free text pop-up, just like that when people exit. And that is exactly the methodology we're having, is that we can then basically have an insight into what are they thinking at that time, why are they leaving? And just a few options is not going to gather that. So I really like the free text approach.
Also, you get some of the wording that people use. So for a sofa, I think it's a bit more obvious. But for food, some people might ask about allergens. What allergens are in the food. Other people might just be asking about the ingredients or the nutritional content, or we've even had people asking whether the meat is like free range or organic. So people really want the specifics of it. It's not enough just to say there's chicken in it. So this is really important, because as a brand, you'd think, well, we've stated there's chicken in it. So from that point of view, if someone's vegetarian, they'll see that and go, nope, don't need that. But there's still the meat eaters who, I don't want to say picky because that sounds like a bad thing, but they want to know it's good quality and that there's animal welfare and all that stuff. So saying organic chicken or free range chicken might be the thing that's actually required there. So yeah, that's kind of concerns about the product. Sometimes it's aftercare as well. So with the sofa, it could be what happens if something gets spilt on it. With lighting, people were asking how they've replaced the bulbs, right? So they're thinking 12, 24 months down the line. What happens? I suppose in some of these cases, these were unusual sized lights that looked like they probably have specific bulbs or light strips or something. So it's a fair question, but now that you realize people are asking that, you think, well, we need to make sure we get this information on site. And then there's also concerns about the business, right? If I've never bought from you before, there might be some things I want to check before I make that purchase. A really common one here, obviously you get reviews. So having, a Trustpilot or reviews.io or a Kendo widget, with your review score on there is great. Get product reviews. That's also really important. But what a lot of people will do is go check your social media account, particularly Instagram. People are looking for, do you have a lot of followers? Which just indicates you've been around a bit. Do you have a live story, which shows that you're active on social? Do you post regularly? Do you get engagement? And actually, we've had some people tell us they go to the comments on images, on posts, to see if people are complaining about the brand. Because what will happen is if a brand is being difficult customer service-wise, people will go and add those comments on social media posts. I placed this order 3 months ago and I've still not heard anything. Where is it? right? So when people start to see those comments, that's obviously a big red flag for them.
It's almost like off-page conversion rate optimization then at that point, isn't it? It's like not something you can do physically on the website, but you can do something externally which then backs up the conversion rate. So how would you then measure that as like, so say you do go away and put some stuff on your Instagram account, and then how are you then measuring the result for that? How do you judge to see if that's actually moved the needle?
It is difficult, to be honest, but if you're getting these questions, then you need to do it. In fact, well, I mean, there's two things you can fix. Firstly, answer people in those comments, address it. Same with the reviews on the actual Trustpilot page, the one you can visit. If people are leaving reviews, whether they're good or bad, respond to them. Be active, respond to them. Obviously, if they're negative, respond properly. Don't just say, oh, please email us and we'll look into it. Always try and look for the opportunity to position yourself well. So, and sometimes that can include, hitting back at that person and saying, well, hang on a minute. This is really common with restaurants where you get owners pushing back at people and saying, well, hang on a minute, you guys were a nightmare party to deal with. Right? I don't think there's much wrong with that as long as you genuinely have a good reason, good response to this, right? So it can't be every time. But if you said, I don't know, if someone was complaining about product returns or something and they'd returned every product for like 6 months, I think it'd be fair to say, the reason we're not allowing you to return it is because you've returned every order you've made over the last 6 months.
Like calling their bluff, yeah. It sort of goes against the customer is always right, I suppose. But I do see that, yeah. I personally have always thought that like avoid conflict in reviews, like always just sort of be super apologetic, come across as you totally understand where they're coming from, and please get in touch and we can resolve this. But that's new to me, actually, like to actually have a little bit of conflict.
You've got to really, really pick those moments to do it and make sure you've got a legit reason. Otherwise, yeah, you would say, we're really sorry about this. I find it's always good to reply as someone more senior on reviews as well, because then you can say, I'm really sorry you've had this experience. I will look into it with the team. Then it obviously looks like you've got a senior person who's stepping in to try and resolve this issue. But yeah, so going back to the LinkedIn piece, and I suppose those comments on Trustpilot, always respond to them, but then make sure you're actually taking into account that feedback and the problems and fix them. Because if you don't fix them, you're going to keep getting the negative reviews, the negative responses. It doesn't matter if you respond to them if every review is bad and every comment is bad. All right, so just make sure you're then fixing the root cause of the problem, and people aren't having these negative experiences. But yeah, it is a difficult one to measure, but it's just one you have to do.
Yeah. So thinking about these experiences, then you've emphasized the importance of making a lasting first impression on potential customers visiting an e-commerce site. In your view, what are the critical elements that make or break this first interaction, and how do those elements directly influence conversion rates?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of a pop-up appearing straight away, especially as a lot of brands, pages don't load, a lot of websites don't load super quickly. Right. And if you've got various widgets and things in place and pop-ups, the worst thing that can happen is you load up a website and just as you're about to click on something, the page shifts. And then it shifts again. And then a pop-up opens, and then your live chat widget opens up to say, you've been on our website 30 seconds, so we thought we'd check if you need help. And you've spent those 30 seconds unable to do anything. So you just want to make sure that the experience is just smooth and easy. I haven't really got specifics to share on this right now because it's going to vary for every brand. I guess the real answer is focus on what the customer is trying to do at this stage and make that really easy for them. So forget about the company journey and what you want people to do. Initially focus on, right, people are trying to do normally two things when they come to your website. They're trying to get information or they're trying to buy. So focus on those two issues. Make sure people can find the products they wanted to buy. Make sure they can find the information they want to look for. If they want to look for your returns page, don't hide it away in some customer service widget dashboard thing. Just give people the information. Really common places in the footer. have a link to your returns policy, have a link to your shipping policy. Same with like unsubscribes from an email. If someone clicks the unsubscribe link, just let them do it. I don't think it has to be a one-click unsubscribe. I think you can I would use a preference center. So let people opt out of the newsletter and events or whatever, but allow them to stay opted into discounts and, well, obviously order updates and things. But people aren't going to say no to an email about discounts, right? If they're still interested from the brand. Some people obviously just, they're not interested anymore. They want to go. So that is a situation where you can add a step to the process, because you're kind of saying to the customer, well, is it this particular piece of content you don't want to receive anymore, or are you out completely? So yeah, I would say that's really the key to that good experience, is helping people find what they want, answering their questions. And then there was actually the motivation piece, which is, how is this product going to change my life, and helping people understand that. Because if you get all three of those, you get the purchase, assuming someone's ready to buy. But if I can't find a product, I can't buy it. If I don't know, if I don't know alternative products are there, I can't buy them. If I've got questions that have to be answered and I can't find the answers to those questions, I'm not going to buy. But even if I've got through that, right? If this product ticks off all the boxes for me, and I'm like, yeah, it's the right color sofa, it's the right size, the right material, you've got a long warranty in place for damage. But if I'm looking at it like it's just a sofa, it's like any other sofa, I might buy it, but the chance of that purchase drops. I need to be thinking, I want this sofa now. I want this sofa to be in my living room because it's going to look amazing. You might think, oh, I've got friends over in a few days. It'd be great if it's in place for that, whatever. But there's got to be that excitement piece. So a lot of brands will use, and a part of motivation is urgency and scarcity, right? So, order it by 12 o'clock to get it next day, that sort of thing. Absolutely fine. But there still has to be that actual motivating factor. Like, why do I want this? What's the benefit of this going to be? Great. Now I really want it. And if I commit to this purchase in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to get it as soon as possible. So it all has to build on top of each other.
Yeah. I suppose it's like trying to get the customer to feel how they're going to feel once they have that item in their house. So that sofa, how's it going to make them feel? It goes about this thing you hear about a lot nowadays, which is like selling by storytelling sort of thing. And I think that leads nicely into my next question, actually, about how do you leverage consumer sort of psychology in your conversion rate optimization approaches, especially considering the varying motivations and anxieties of online shoppers? Could you give us an example of where understanding customer psychology significantly boosted conversion rates?
Yeah, I suppose it's all... I mean, we've got a massive list of like psychological tactics we can use. A lot of them just don't really apply to a lot of the brands we've worked for. So they work really well for like skincare brands, where you want to push people through a quiz and that sort of thing. They work well for like building a bundle sort of things, or subscriptions. We've got loads of tactics for those, but actually a lot of the brands we've been working with recently just haven't been as relevant. However, one that's worked really, really well every time we've used it is that shipping timer, which is, if you buy it by this time, either we'll be able to ship it today or it's next day delivery. We've tested a couple of, it works differently for different brands. For one brand that I thought next day delivery would work really well for, actually the next day message had a negative impact compared to the control. It was the shipped today message which had the positive impact, which I was really surprised by, because it was footwear. I know it's not the most urgent thing, but I was just really surprised that, you can have this in your hands tomorrow worse than we'll ship it today.
Do you think that's because people nowadays sort of assume fast delivery? And so when I'm thinking of if I was a consumer on that site, next day delivery, in my eyes, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll come tomorrow. It means that when they ship it, it'll be next day delivery. Whereas ship today I then maybe make the assumption the opposite way as, well, if they're shipping it today, it'll come tomorrow, sort of thing. Do you think that could be it?
Possibly. I would have to go find out exactly what that test said and whether it did say delivery tomorrow or if we did just say next day delivery. But yeah, it was just interesting. I guess, yeah, the shipping today is that key message. I suppose this is a UK thing as well. I think it's going to be probably different in the US where shipping times are longer. Whereas here, yeah, I do think a lot of the time you just expect your order to turn up pretty much the next day or maybe the day after.
I know if I order something by 2 or 3 p.m., I'm almost assuming that it's going to come in the next 1 or 2 days, absolute latest.
Yeah, so maybe it's just different in the UK where, yeah, like you say, next day delivery could mean tomorrow or the next day, whereas ship today means I'm probably going to get it tomorrow. If not, it'll be the next day.
Yeah, it's going to go out today. Yeah. It's interesting, but I think it does speak to sort of all the psychological tests that you can do on the site to sort of determine what is going to work best for specifically your customer. And I suppose that's the theme here, is that these tests, you've got so many in your arsenal that you can use, and it's very specific to different brands. So working with someone who, like yourselves, who've done this all before with other brands that are similar to our listeners, then that can be a really good approach.
I suppose it's just some of the other like kind of lighter touch psychological stuff we've done. We ran a test with one brand where, so this was interesting because actually that footwear brand, they had an in-stock tag on their products. So pretty much, a lot of products just had in stock with a little green icon. And if it was out of stock, I think the button, the call to action was just grayed out. It said out of stock. We removed that in stock like icon for them. And I can't remember the impact on desktop. I think it was pretty much flat, but for mobile, it had quite a good increase in conversion rate. The theory being it wasn't necessary to tell people to specify that it's in stock, because if people could select a size and buy it, it's fine, it's good to go. So all it did actually was it pulled up content above the fold. So now we got people into the experience quicker. Now for a lighting brand, however, we had the opposite. Because they didn't have that tag in place, we introduced it and we tested 3 versions, which was something like one was in stock, one was in stock and ready to ship, and I think the other might have been in stock and shipped today. Something like that. So again, we're going for that. We're just trying to combine that kind of urgency message. Now, in stock was the winner, just plain in stock. So people didn't really care about the ship today sort of message. But it's interesting when we did some research into it and found that people assumed that because of the type of products they may have to wait a few days for stock to come in, or it might be made to order, or well, not made to order, but I think there was the assumption that because it was kind of home decor furniture, it would take a little longer, or things might not be in stock. So by saying in stock, people were like, well, that means I can buy it today and I'll get it soon. So yeah, it was just a really interesting impact. And it's one of these things that just shows you have to test everything. Even search, right? I think my LinkedIn poster talked about it. About 9 times out of 10, that test has worked well for us. Every now and again, it doesn't. And we don't test it when it's obvious it's not going to work. So if we were working on a service website, we're probably not going to introduce search or focus on it because people might not want to use it. But for ecom brands, if you've got more than 20, 30 products, probably, it works because people will start searching for it. If it's retail in particular, it works really, really well. Search is used a lot. But yeah, just every now and again, even when you think, oh yeah, we can see in the current search experience, people are searching for certain terms. So let's try making it more visible and see what it does. And sometimes it'll either be flat or it has a negative impact.
Yeah, and I suppose that comes back to getting the customer to find the thing they're looking for the quickest. And one of the ways to do that when you've got lots of products is through search. But it's interesting to hear that you're also then using the things that people are searching for to then collect that data to then reposition things on the website. Is that what I'm hearing? Sort of if people are searching for a specific item a lot, is that then, shall we put that on the homepage to make it even quicker for people to find that product?
Not exactly like that, but it does kind of feed into our thoughts for other tests. For example, it might be how we redo the search. Not search. Redo the navigation, for example. So, with one brand we're working with, we realized that I think over half their navigation basically just doesn't get clicked. So we were like, well, let's actually redo the navigation slightly and just make sure we've got those key category pages that people visit as the first option there. Right? If no one is clicking outdoor products, then let's move that one away. Let's subcategorize that underneath the general term, and let's make sure that the key ones are there. I mean, we're talking significant differences, like tens of thousands of visits to the page per month versus hundreds. Not hundreds of thousands, just hundreds. So some of these tens of thousands of pages aren't primary categories, which means people have to go search for them. So let's make them more visible. Let's help, again, it's like help people get to where they want to get to quicker so they can find what they want to buy. For retail, we'd quite go down to that product level because with this one brand in particular, they've got, I think it's more than 5,000 SKUs on the website. So it wouldn't make sense to highlight one particular product. But for other brands, absolutely. And you don't have to just use the search data. You can use your bestsellers, see which pages people visit. You can look at, what's really good to look at is how many people view a page compared to how many people buy it, and compare those across your products. Because some people will prioritize pages that get a lot of traffic because they think they're the most popular. But if they're not the ones selling, then why send more traffic to those pages? Or you need to work on those pages.
Bucket that leaks loads of water, put more water in it, it still leaks water. Fix the leak. But by the sounds of it, there's a lot of different tests that you can do. So thinking about that, obviously now we're entering this era of AI and things like that. Is there anything that you're building into your sort of process now where AI can be helping you to run these tests more quickly and more efficiently? Or is it still that you are manually thinking of these, manually setting them up and then analyzing the results yourselves?
Yes, we use AI for like data analysis and research. So, we might feed 1,000 reviews into it, and we'll have a quite detailed prompt which asks, what are the key positive terms, negative terms, what are people talking about, what's the language we use, and then we ask it to basically regurgitate certain things. So we always check it because I'm still not 100% convinced by it, and I'm aware that sometimes it will confidently make stuff up that it thinks is correct. So yeah, normally we'll get it to, if we've asked it what are the key themes in negative reviews, if one of those themes are the sofa material wore away quickly, we will ask it to show us one or two reviews, or maybe give us the review number so that we can go check it and make sure people are actually referencing that, and that's what's been said. And also, sometimes you have to check it to see whether what they're saying is, what the AI is saying is negative, is actually a negative comment, and whether they've actually understood the context of a comment correctly. So we use it for that to give us, the key themes, which we'll then explore further. We don't use it we might use it to get some initial ideas for tests, which we'll then develop and match in with the research, but we'll never run a test that has just been generated through AI because it's not that good, right? It doesn't know, you'd have to feed a huge amount of data into it to get a confident idea for that test. But, you might be able to say, here's a test idea we're thinking of. This is why, this is the research that got into it. Can you give us a couple of other suggestions for how this test could be run? But even then, it's obviously basing its ideas off everything it's read. So yeah, it can come up with some stuff, but I'd just be cautious about it. We don't use AI for like heat maps and things. So we won't use it where, I don't understand these products where people are saying you can like submit a page design to it or submit a page and it will analyze it as if thousands of people have viewed this page. And you're like, well, it's just guessing. It's guessing based on some parameters it's been told to look for. It's not actual user behavior. So that's pointless.
Yeah. I still think that this free text pop-up on exit is probably the most powerful thing that we've talked about today in terms of you then get to know truly what the customer wants and how they're feeling. Because I think one of the things that we struggle with a lot is that we make decisions of ways we're going to improve or change or do something differently inside our software based on what we think our customers are thinking. And so I think getting them to actually tell you in their own words is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, so many times we see brands making optimizations, and they're adding in a new widget or something. They'll add in shipping protection because they think it's what people want, and really what they're thinking is we're going to get an extra 5% on every order for this. But if you ask customers, no customer's ever going to say, "Oh, I'd like to pay for shipping protection on this." I've never really seen it in the UK actually on a website, and I assume that's because you are protected in the UK, and I assume the EU as well. If your product doesn't turn up, it's the brand's problem, not mine, right? And if you refuse to fix it, you're going to get a bad review. I don't know what the rules are in the US around it, but people seem much happier to pay for shipping protection in the US.
That's strange. So you're paying to guarantee that the item will be delivered?
Yeah.
I would assume that the consumer is well protected in that when the item is shipped, it's the company's responsibility until the point where they can prove that it was delivered.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
So that is a bit strange.
But yeah, no, it's still, you get pretty good take rates in the US for it. But yeah, like a lot of changes that brands make on their own, it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. Right? There's no, what is the real reason? It's why people resort to discounts, right? It's the classic abandoned cart, right? Abandoned cart email is, here's what's in your cart. Then you might get another email which says, this is still in your cart waiting for you. And then you get a discount in the next one. And the reason someone abandoned their cart might be because, it could be the shipping fee is too high. It could be that they just weren't convinced by the product, right? Like I was talking earlier, that motivation piece might not be there. So it might have checked all their boxes for, it's the right size, it's the right color, whatever, but they just weren't actually sold on it. And just, it didn't help them see how they'd achieve their desired outcome, or it didn't help them, they didn't see how it would resolve a pain point for them. That might be the reason they haven't purchased. And so a discount might get them to buy, because it ticked all the boxes, and they go, well, yeah, go on then. If you're giving me 15% off, I'll buy it. But you probably could have got that purchase by asking a few questions and then making some changes to the PDP, and then your conversion rate will go up, your AOV will go up because you're not giving those discounts away, and you're just generally in a better position.
Yeah, and I agree with that actually, in terms of if you ask the customer why they didn't buy, then not only are you potentially going to be able to turn around that sale, but you'll also be able to then implement that as something that will help for other sales as well. So just hoying a discount at them is a temporary fix, isn't it? It's like, I can maybe get this one over the line, but then you're going to have to do that in every case. So then you may as well increase your prices by 15% and continually give away a 15% discount. Whereas I think getting to the root cause, as you say, that is the most important part, to be able to then future-proof it.
Again, yeah, obviously it comes down to the type of business. When I work with this footwear retailer, everyone is price sensitive, because you're selling exact same shoes as 20, 30 other big websites. If you're the most expensive, then why would someone buy from you? You might be able to convince someone that your service level is so much better and that it will be delivered tomorrow. If they've got a problem, everyone is confident that you will replace the product and whatever. But if you're more than about, 10% higher price-wise, people are just going to go somewhere else. Or people are asking, some of the most common issues for that brand were, the welcome discount didn't work, couldn't get my student discount, do you have offers for new customers, that sort of thing. It was all price related, because if you know the brand, the product brand, then your trust is already there. You know what you want to buy, you're just trying to find the best price for it. Whereas for brands who don't have that exact competition, and you can say that our product is different, even to a slight degree, like a slight design difference, then yeah, you can fight on the pricing a bit more and say, well, there's a reason it's a bit more expensive.
Yeah. What about in terms of not just on the pricing though, thinking about that shoe company as an example there, could it not also be like when I'm buying shoes, I know that like, oh, it's going to be a right fanny on to like buy them online, because am I going to get is that my size or do I need another size? And so I'll typically I'll order my size and then either side, one each way as well. And then I'll just return the two. Can I do that? Is it going to be possible? Like, is it free returns, or they're going to like charge me for return shipping and stuff like that? Like making that front of mind and being like, you can order these and you'll basically only pay for the one that's going to be the one you'll keep.
Yes, I mean, the better fix for that is convince people they've got the right size. Well, and get people the right size. So you pay for a tool which will do it for you. Right? There are tools out there. Some of them are reasonably expensive. I can't remember if any are on like commission only. But if you can just reduce the number of returns that you get, people buy one product, they keep one product. I think I can't remember the exact like data set this was used for, but I read that the cost of returns can be up to 60% of the value of the product. Right? So that means if someone returns the product and you've got free returns, for example, you've then lost 60% of the value of that product. Right? Because you've had to give them money back and you've incurred all those costs. Right? So even if that cost for you is 10, 15%, you're literally just losing 10, 15% of every order that gets returned. I think when I have these conversations with brands, I don't think they fully appreciate that at first. And they think, well, all right, we've got to give a refund back. And then, some of the brands who are a bit more, aware of the costs and logistics and stuff, they think, oh, well, we'll charge the return shipping fee or something. And, they're still going to lose money on it because they've still got to repackage it, restock it, or ship it off to an outlet store or something like that.
Yeah. I suppose there's a few parts to that, isn't there? It comes back to this, making sure the customer's found the right product and you've answered all their questions, because the more you do that, the more likely it is that they're going to keep that product, I suppose, is one part of it. But then the other part, I suppose, is does the conversion rate optimization then follow through into not only the initial conversion, i.e. converting the sale, but also converting the not return, if that makes sense? Like, do you do anything on that side of things as well to like reduce refunds and returns?
Yeah, so again, it obviously becomes a little bit more difficult to track with certain things, but we for certain tests, we'll keep an eye specifically on returns rate. And then obviously if a client comes back to us and says, oh, returns have gone through the roof, what's going on? We might look at what we've done and say, oh, we think it is this test. But generally, I don't think we've ever done anything which has increased returns for a client. Can't remember that ever happening. And actually, one that completely makes sense, but a lot of people think it should be the other way. We increased the returns policy from 14 to 30 days for a brand, and they had no impact on the returns. In fact, their returns was coming down because they actually did fix a problem with the product itself. So their returns rate fell over that period.
But did it affect the sale conversion rate?
Yeah, it had a positive impact on sales, because 30 days for a lot of these products is plenty of time. Right? 14 does sound a bit rushed, because you're like, you feel like you've got to open that product immediately, test it out, make sure it works, and then make sure if it's not right for you, you get it to the returns, wherever you need to get to returns. 30 days sounds like ages.
Have you tested it further than that as well? Because I know a couple of brands that I buy from, and also one of my dad buys like motorcycle gear, and one of the places he buys from is like 365-day returns. Have you tested anything like that?
So for that same brand, we went to 100 days, because they were selling a pillow, and a lot of mattresses will do 100-night term policy. We saw basically no increase from 30-day to 100-day in conversion rate. So essentially what happens is, people test out a product. They know very, very quickly whether it's right or wrong for them. So, look at clothing, for example. You put some clothing on, you immediately know whether it's the right fit for you or not, and whether you need to return it. You don't need to wear it for 30 days to see if it actually fits you and then return it. So a lot of these products are not really an issue. With the mattresses, yeah, maybe people want to check it out for a little while to make sure it's, they are sleeping better, or maybe some sort of pain is going away. But yeah, for most products, you don't really need it. The only other times I'd suggested are maybe kind of supplements and nutrition stuff, where you can kind of say, well, yeah, if you don't feel the benefit at the end of 30 days, we'll give you your money back. Most people don't. I think a lot of people, so I still kind of use Heights. Do you know Heights, the supplement? Becoming quite a big supplement brand, but I did reach that point where I was kind of like, I don't really know if this is having any impact for me. Now, admittedly, this is months later, so I'm outside the returns policy anyway. But I think there are probably a lot of people who they're only going to return it if they feel worse and actually feel worse off. Whereas there's probably a little bit of guilt involved in returning the product if they don't know.
Especially if you've used it as well, especially if it's like it's a tub of pills and you've used 75% of that tub and like you're not feeling a mega benefit. Like I think most people are just going to be like, okay, I'll not buy that again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for me. I'm just not going to buy it again. I doubt many people get to the end of, or near the end of 30 days and then complain to the company and say, I don't feel superhuman. So what's this doing for me? It's like, well, I guess that's part of the issue with supplements like this, isn't it? You might not really notice much change. Even when they talk about increased focus and mental clarity and stuff like that, if I go out and get drunk every other night, I'm not going to notice that benefit because I'm going to spend half the time hungover. Right. So, it only works if you do, if you don't change any other variables, run a proper test. I've had the same, I've actually started ADHD meds recently. And my first week was an absolute mess because my first week of it was basically the Christmas party week for everyone. So I was out every day. They say don't drink coffee. I did both of those all week and I felt dreadful. And then I had another week of testing it where I was well behaved. I don't think I drank. I don't think I had any coffee, and I felt a lot better. But even when I had that follow-up appointment, I was like, to be completely honest, I know this isn't really a valid test because I've been doing it for a week and there are a lot of other things going on. So, but yeah, what was the point? Returns. Yeah. I think you can offer quite strong returns policies in certain circumstances and they do have an impact. And then other cases where essentially people just want to know that if something is wrong, they can get their money back. Right? That's the key thing. People don't want to return products. Apart from people who are buying for Instagram and stuff like that, who obviously, if there's a free returns policy, they will abuse it. The general person who genuinely wants the product and thinks it's going to benefit them, they don't want to return it, right? They're not buying it thinking, oh, go on, I'll just buy it because I can return it if I don't like it. They're thinking, I want this to work for me, but if there's something wrong, if it doesn't work, at least I can send it back and get my money back. Right. So yeah, I think that's why going up to 30 days worked, because it gave people that comfort that they had enough time to test it without feeling rushed. But then going to 100 days didn't have any impact on conversion or returns because the returns happened within the first 14 days.
Yeah, I understand. So last few questions here then. So with the increasing prevalence of mobile commerce, is there anything that you do differently when you're looking at in terms of conversion rate optimization specifically for mobile? Is there anything that you can share that would help people to improve that?
Not specifically for mobile, but we do a lot of our analysis mobile first now. So, if we get some feedback from customers and, they're asking, how do I find this piece of information? When we look at heat maps and session recordings, we're focusing on mobile first, to see where are these people clicking? What are they doing? But again, it does change brand by brand. We've got two brands in the furniture space at the moment, both a bit different. If I remember correctly, one of them is more heavily mobile traffic, but their revenue is about 50-50. And the other one is probably, I think it's about 60-40 split mobile and desktop traffic, but desktop makes about 70% of their revenue. So that's the initial stance is, well, we get the most traffic from mobile, so that's where we need to focus. But it's like, well, actually, your conversion rate is so much better on desktop. Obviously, we want to optimize both, but let's not think mobile first for them because desktop is their buying place. And we're not talking about, oh, wow, your mobile conversion rate is so bad. What's going on here? We're talking about, the difference between mobile and desktop looking normal, but they're making more money on desktop. So let's make sure we're building for those experiences. And then when we build out, test, and design them, we do make changes depending on whether it's mobile and desktop. We don't do exactly the same thing. And if we do, then obviously we're analyzing them for both as well. So there are plenty of tests where they work on desktop, don't work on mobile, and vice versa. You've just got to try and learn. And then once you've run tests for a few months, you might start to pick up some themes there. And you might start to say, well, actually, these sort of tests don't work on mobile. These behaviors aren't working quite well. People are responding differently. So maybe in the future, when we run tests, we need to take that into account, design them differently in the first place, or even think of test ideas that take that behavior into account immediately anyway.
Yeah. So from conversion rate optimization standpoint, what's the one thing that an e-commerce store can do right now to boost their profitability if you had to pick one thing?
Like immediately, like a quick
like
impact
today
thing?
They could go on and they could make a change today and that would positively impact the bottom line.
Well, from a CRO point of view, I say you can't do that because you should test,
Yeah.
right? Everything's going to be tested because you just don't know, right? It's such a key thing. You can see it on other websites. Not only do you not know if it will work for you because you've got a different website, a different brand, different audience, different ads, different messaging, you don't know if that's working for them either. You could be looking at some multi-million-pound competitor who's 10 times your size. They might not have tested that, right? That feature could be losing them money because no one tested it. They just built it. Or it could be the situation where you go onto their website, you fall into a test variant. So they're testing that, right? And it could be a negative as well. So you just don't know. So never just copy off other websites. I would say it's not going to make you money immediately, but at least it will point you in the right direction. Send out a survey to customers. What's the main reason you haven't purchased? What's the most important piece of information about the products? What's the most important information about the brand, the business you're buying from? So you want to know, top level, like why they haven't purchased. What is the information they're looking for about the products? What information are they looking for before they'll buy from you? Those 3 questions will give you a load of information. Go into your customer service, basically do exactly the same thing. Look through all those like key, assuming all your tags and stuff in place, find out, what are the most common category of contact, dive into those, find out what people are really asking, and then work out how you can fix those problems. And then you can do exactly the same with reviews as well. So look at reviews for your brand and your competitors, see what people like, see what they don't like, and see how you can be better on all of that.
Yeah, that makes solid advice. I think maybe the question was a little bit misleading because maybe the whole idea of this is that you need to test everything. So I think that making one change and expecting it to work straight away is maybe just a bit far-fetched.
The other way, the other answer from a CRO point of view is if you want to improve your conversion rates, turn off your bad performing traffic, turn off Meta. Guarantee your conversion rate will go up. You won't make as much money, but your conversion rate will go up. And I think it's kind of, I know we don't have time to go really into this because it is quite a long topic, but one thing we don't advise people do is actually look at their website conversion rate. It doesn't matter, right? Because you'll look at your website conversion rate, might be 1.5%, but if you've got a load of blog traffic, that traffic pulls down your conversion rate. If you've got really, really heavy, if you've started doing TikTok a lot, your conversion rate is going to be dropped down because TikTok traffic doesn't convert as well. Neither does Meta compared to PPC. So what we look at is those channel. We look at the conversion rate funnel itself. How many people view a product? How many people add to cart, start checkout, complete checkout? And that's where we're looking at our tests. So when we say conversion rate increased 15% for this test, you're not going to see a 15% increase on your overall conversion rate. You're going to see a 15% increase on the people who went from cart to checkout and then converted, which is going to be a much smaller segment of your customers.
Yeah. But it's like thinking about your customer journey, isn't it? And splitting it up into the parts of the funnel. And then you're trying to optimize each little part of that funnel with a view that the overall picture will be affected. Where do you typically start? I'm just thinking of another question here. So where would you typically start? So when you bring in a new client and you're thinking about, okay, we're going to analyze what's going on with their business, do you always tend to start in one place, or is it very business specific?
So we've got a lot of tasks that we'll do for everyone anyway. So Google Analytics, heat maps, session recordings, customer surveys, review mining, customer service, that sort of thing, because there's just loads of feedback everywhere. The first thing we really look at is the e-commerce funnel in Google Analytics. Where is the drop-off, right? Where are we seeing a red flag? We've got some rough benchmarks in place. They don't always apply, and you've got to think it through, because the benchmarks we have are for e-commerce and not for a category. So we know that some categories are going to be, have a lower add to cart rate, for example. But what we're looking at is how many people view a product, how many of those people add to cart, how many of those people go to checkout, and how many of those people complete the checkout. And where we see a noticeable drop off at one point that we think is too high, that's where we target our efforts, because that's normally the biggest problem area. It's not to say you can't fix everything anyway. If we see a really low add to cart rate, if we increase the number of people who get to a product page, you should increase your conversions anyway. But the idea is basically, if your add to cart rate is very low, it means you've got a product page problem. So people's questions aren't being answered. They're not convinced the product is right for them. They're not excited by the product, and they don't want to buy it. So yeah, that's obviously the e-commerce funnel is where you want to look at. In fact, so I would actually say that product discovery tends to be one of the worst performers for a lot of brands. They just don't get people to view a product, don't get enough people to view a product.
Okay, last question. This is well off topic, but if you were having a lunch party or a cocktail party and you had to invite 2 or 3 people from the e-commerce world, who would you be inviting, and what would you want to talk to them about?
So first would be Jeremy Horowitz. He does credible financial breakdowns of businesses. He'll either do, this brand should buy this brand for X reason, or he'll just say, this brand is failing, here's how I would fix it. And it's really detailed, really well thought through. These analysis that he does are just incredible. The other one, it'd have to be someone from a really high growth D2C brand. I don't want someone, I don't really want someone from like Apple or Amazon, because it's just so different what they do. Apple, a lot of people say, well, we should design our landing pages like Apple, or our product pages like Apple. No, you shouldn't. They get by because they're Apple, and people want to buy an iPhone, so they're happy to just deal with that website experience. I'm not saying the experience is bad, but it just because they're Apple means they can get away with doing things differently and doing things their way. I don't have a brand off the top of my head, to be honest, but it'd just be a high growth brand, maybe doing like 10 to 20 million and growing well, and just see, how do they get to that stage? What are the plans? Like, what's working for them? Where do they see their efforts really, really working?
Yeah. Interesting. That would make a good little cocktail party, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Will. Last thing for you is, how do the listeners get in touch with you if they've got any follow-up questions? And more importantly, how do they get in touch with your team if they want to start some conversion rate optimization tests with you guys?
Yeah, so you can either find me on LinkedIn, really active there. I post content most days, and I'm pretty responsive to connections and messages there. Or you can go to customerswhoclick.com. There's loads of information about what we do. There's case studies, and you can book a call through the website.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Will. And I will speak to you next time.
All right. Thank you for having me.
The e-commerce profitability show is brought to you by Link My Books. To find out more about Link My Books and how to accurately automate your e-commerce bookkeeping to ensure profitable growth, visit linkmybooks.com, and then make sure to search for e-commerce profitability in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Link My Books, thanks for listening.